In the 18th century, Scotland's capital was bursting at the seams. People from all walks of life lived cheek by jowl in the squalid and overcrowded tenements that were crammed within the medieval city. With no sanitation, all their waste was unceremoniously thrown out onto the streets. In 1766, a young unknown architect won the competition to design a new town for Edinburgh. James Craig's visionary design was to transform Edinburgh into one of the most fashionable cities in Europe. It took over 50 years to build the first phase of the new town. Number 7 Charlotte Square was one of the most fashionable addresses in Edinburgh. Behind the elegant facade, the household servants have been up for hours, preparing for the day ahead. The Georgian house is a model of efficiency.
I've never seen the market so busy. Wait a wee lassie. There's a lot to be done.
Number 7 Charlotte Square is the home of the Lamont family. Head of the household is John Lamont, the 18th chief of the Clan Lamont. Like all parents, the Lamonts want the best for their children. They have moved to Edinburgh from their country estate to be near a good school for their sons and to find suitable husbands for their daughters. The winter months are the highlight of the social season, when Edinburgh's polite society attend dinners and balls every week.
The Abercromby's son James is returned from the French War. He'll be joining our supper party this evening. I have heard he has over £1,000 a year and a commission in the army.
Sounds as if he'd be a suitable match for our Georgina.
Georgina, like her younger sister, does not attend school. Instead, the girls are tutored in the skills that are essential to any young lady's education. Skills like music, needlework, and a little arithmetic for housekeeping will help to attract the most important thing of all, a suitable husband. Living well in the most fashionable address in Edinburgh's new town would strain the purse strings of most people. And although John Lamont is a comparatively well-off man, like many of his neighbours in the new town, he has been living beyond his means. To maintain their fashionable lifestyle, the Lamonts employ 6 servants, including Gilchrist, their manservant.
Good morning, sir. Mr. Lamont is expecting you. This way.
Mr. Lamont is a gentleman. He does not work. He lives on the income from his family estates.
Mr. Fitch has arrived, sir.
Very well.
The Lamont's younger children are late for their classes in the old town.
I'm quick for all of my dad's class. I'm running as fast as I can.
Oh, a minute. Young Elizabeth, show some propriety in your behaviour.
Sorry, sir.
Norman will escort his older sister to her dance class before going on to school. The new town is still mainly a residential suburb, and so most people still commute to the old town.
Mr. Fitch, I trust you are well.
I am indeed, sir, and I hope I find you well.
Sit down. Tell me what matter requires this urgent meeting.
As you're no doubt aware, sir, your debts are extreme. I have drawn up a plan of economy you might make.
Servants, carriages, London. No. This will not do. I would rather quit Charlotte Square altogether than to stay on under such disagreeable terms. A gentleman in Edinburgh must be seen to live like a gentleman.
Very well, sir. Then we must proceed with the sale of the lands at Toward.
Better to sell unwanted land in the country than to count every penny in the town.
Mary, the under-housemaid, is 14 years old. Like many girls in her position, she works long hours. A 16-hour day is not unusual. That is 112 hours a week. She is paid about £8 a year. Despite the sophisticated appearance of the Georgian house, it has no running water. Every drop is delivered in barrels to the door. With no baths or wash-hand basins, the mistress uses just 1 jug of water for washing.
Remember to take that away.
The entire household only uses around 20 jugs of water a day. The average modern house uses 100 times more. With no running water, the Georgian house has no flushing toilets. Another of Mary's jobs is to empty the chamber pot.
And to tell Mrs. Ogilvy I would have a word.
Below stairs, the kitchen has been busy for hours preparing for tonight's dinner party. With no refrigerator or convenience foods, everything has to be prepared from what is fresh and in season.
You should have finished that by now.
I'm nearly finished, cook.
You've still got the cabbage to do.
In the Georgian house, nothing is wasted. On tonight's menu is a great favourite, potted heed. Cook has to produce 14 dishes for tonight's dinner, and although she does have a state-of-the-art kitchen, it is still a tall order. Jessie, the scullery maid, is only 11 years old. Her parents could not afford to feed her, and so Jessie was sent into service. After a cursory wash, Mrs. Lamont applies her perfume. Because of the rudimentary washing facilities, Georgian ladies and gentlemen used a lot of perfume. Her next task is to ensure that preparations for tonight's dinner are in order.
Ah, Mrs. Ogilvy.
Having a housekeeper is an Edinburgh status symbol.
There will be 1 extra for dinner tonight.
The housekeeper's role is to ensure the household runs smoothly and efficiently. In Georgian Edinburgh, appearances are everything. Despite his banker's concerns, John Lamont has no intention of economising. The family do have an extravagant lifestyle, but their cost of living is pushed even higher by taxes on luxuries like their horse and carriage. Gentlemen have already given up wearing wigs because of the tax on wig powder. There is a tax on windows, wax candles, and employing a manservant. And now there is a very unpopular new tax that the government has introduced, income tax. This is to finance the current war with France. John Lamont is going to have his portrait painted, this time by the most sought-after artist of the day, Henry Raeburn. From there he might go on to his club in the Old Town, although the High Street will be very busy today. A 15-year-old youth convicted of housebreaking is to be hanged. In Georgian Edinburgh, public executions are a very popular form of entertainment. The building work for James Craig's new town plan started in 1767, just over 20 years after Bonnie Prince Charlie's army was defeated at the Battle of Culloden. Edinburgh had to convince the rest of Britain that the city was loyal to the British king, George III. James Craig's plan, with its royal street names, had struck exactly the right note of loyalty to king and country. Using James Craig's master plan, a variety of architects designed the individual buildings that made up the new town. This meant that some streets lacked a consistent design. Others, like Princes Street, were said to be too plain and regimented. Something had to be done. The City Council decided to complete this first phase of the new town with an architectural flourish. In 1790, they invited the famous Scottish architect Robert Adam to draw up elevations for Charlotte Square. Adam used his skill and expertise to produce these palace front designs, where the individual houses were unified by a classical facade, making them appear as one very grand structure. Adam's masterpiece of restrained elegance and classical design gained Edinburgh's new town international recognition. Mrs. Lamont has invited Mrs. Campbell to take tea. Tea has become even more popular since the high tax on it has been reduced. Having a housekeeper means that Mrs. Lamont enjoys a great deal of leisure time. Georgian etiquette allows married women the freedom to socialise and dabble in charity work.
I have heard he's a most agreeable young man.
But marrying her daughters off well is her main concern. Young unmarried women are confined to the house and never allowed out without an escort. The Edinburgh season provides the welcome distraction of dances at the assembly rooms, despite their dance partners being chosen for them. The Lammonts' daughters are highly fashion conscious. Even in Edinburgh, they manage to keep up with all the latest London fashions.
I believe he leaves within 1 week.
It's 3 o'clock, and Mary, the under-housemaid, is just over halfway through her working day. The drawing room is being prepared for this evening. No expenses spared. Only the most expensive beeswax candles are used in the pier glasses, and the protective covers on the best furniture are removed. Downstairs in the dining room, Mrs. Ogilvy, the housekeeper, checks that everything is in order. The table is laid out exactly to her instructions.
Thank you.
Gilchrist is preparing the wine and port for this evening's dinner party. Over a dozen bottles will be required. This is an age of very heavy drinking. In the winter, the days are so short that cook has to complete the final preparations in the gloom. Unlike the candles in the drawing room, the tallow candles used in the kitchen are made from animal fat and give off a poor light. Cook has laid out a selection of the finished dishes ready for Mrs. Ogilvy to inspect. The raw ingredients have been transformed into a feast fit for kings. Some of the dishes are so elaborate they have taken days to prepare. In the Georgian house, the food was not served in the courses we know today. Instead, the game pies, meats and savouries were served at the same time as sweet dishes and jellies. The Lammonts' guests have arrived, and dinner is served at 5 o'clock. Tonight's dinner marks the start of the party season. The Lammonts' social obligations will be met by hosting small dinner parties like this one, a few evening parties, and a ball. The conversation turns to the current war with Napoleon, and one guest in particular is attracting special attention.
Captain Abercromby, I understand you saw action at the Battle of Kern.
I did, sir. My regiment, the Royal Scots Fusiliers, fought the rear guard action. We held the French back as best we could.
Is it true that we sustained rather more losses than we were led to believe?
That would not have surprised me, sir. The fighting was fierce. It's clear we earned our battle honours that day. However, there's no doubt in my mind that Britain will prevail.
As the dinner progresses, the dishes at each end of the table are removed and replaced by a fresh selection until the end of the meal.
Ladies, shall we retire to take tea?
Once the ladies retire to the drawing room, things start to relax a little.
To the ladies.
The evening degenerates into interminable toasts and sentiments that provide an excuse for huge amounts of wine drinking.
Win their hearts and never lose them.
With the ladies absent, the chamber pot is used, sometimes without a pause in the conversation. Although the dinner has finished, downstairs in the kitchen there is still a lot of work to do. It will be midnight before Jessie, the scullery maid, gets to bed.
Are you getting on with the alphabet that I taught you?
Mary is trying to encourage Jessie's reading. She started in the house as the scullery maid, and so she knows how hard it can be. The gentlemen have rejoined the ladies and more guests have arrived, so the dancing can begin. The Polonaise is a popular European dance that allows both the ladies and the gentlemen to display their poise and elegance in the splendour of the drawing room. The evening has been a great success. The Lammonts have confirmed their position in the polite society of Georgian Edinburgh. Their daughter has gained a new and very suitable admirer. Number 7 Charlotte Square is a perfect reflection of their lifestyle. Before the new town was built, Edinburgh was a provincial capital with a medieval heart. Robert Adams' masterpiece of Charlotte Square was the crowning glory of the new town. Edinburgh came to reflect the spirit of the age. It was transformed into one of the most admired and fashionable cities in Europe. This city of palaces was favourably compared to the great cities of the world. With its situation, beauty and classical architecture, Edinburgh became known as the Athens of the North.